Hi, everyone. Welcome today to the next frontier in insights. I am delighted, absolutely delighted to have Danielle McConnell today here with us from Vertway. And she's going to be talking about something that has been in the news for quite some time, i.e., the metaverse. It kind of got superseded by this whole conversation around generative AI for the last 18 months. But guess what? The metaverse hasn't gone away at all. In fact, it's become even better since the first rounds we were seeing. So Danielle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So I am just absolutely excited because I've been playing with the metaverse from the one that that you gave me access to. I want to get right into it because there's so much we can talk about in this particular topic. So why don't we first start with like the basics of what is a metaverse and how does it actually work and what are you guys doing in that space? How about if we start there?
The basics of the metaverse are quite complicated, but
Yeah.
I'll just maybe do an overview of like Vertway and what we've been doing within this sector. So the company I work for, Vertway, is a metaverse platform provider. We've been around since about 2010, which way before a lot of 3D engines and everything were around. So at that time, we actually built our own 3D engine.
Mhm.
The company was originally more into video games and saw an opportunity for tourism, building out these 3D virtual environments that everyone's kind of seen today. We went from tourism to education and brought that kind of full circle with more of like a corporate metaverse.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say that Vertway, what they did from the beginning was they redefined kind of this engagement and productivity and positioning itself as a user-friendly and secure metaverse platform for business and universities. Um, so you drive this accessibility, immersiveness, engagement, and then you've got your deep functionalities adding AI in there as well. So basic definition of a metaverse is totally depends on your experience and your use case and how you want to do it.
Mhm.
it in our particular company, we kind of focus in some core offerings in different categories. So maybe just talk about those to give a better idea.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there's marketing sales, obviously, where these types of use cases are leveraging the metaverse to create more like memorable brand experiences, maybe product demos, showrooms, marketing activations, and then you've got alongside of that immersive websites. So this is something new that we just started offering, but that's um, kind of like the evolution of a 2D website, creating a 3D website. So
Mm.
creating something more immersive, bringing your website into the metaverse. And I had a call last week from a guy, and he said, "Oh, this is like redefining a landing page. Like you're actually coming in with your avatar and landing into a company's page." And so yeah, you take the scrollers to explorers and they come in to this, and there's a different experience, and there's a different way that they're engaging and collecting your content. Um, Separately, a different offering, maybe virtual training and onboarding.
Mhm.
So a lot of companies are doing training programs in the metaverse, and traditional training programs can be super boring. You just have to click through. You have to do them. You have your deadlines, and a
Yeah.
lot of people are doing the work on the side. But when you do it in the metaverse, they actually have to come through and do it. But it's fun. So
Mhm.
the feedback is, okay, I'll do another one like this. Is the companies are seeing the results? Like, okay, it makes
Mhm.
sense to do a training program in the metaverse, and same with onboarding. And you're really bringing the user in and getting to know the company culture in a very different way, where they feel maybe a little bit more included as they're coming into a new company. Then there's team building, team collaboration. So you've got all the gamification factors as well, your obstacle
Mhm.
courses, escape rooms, treasure hunts. So there's all different ways to kind of have those networking or team building events. And then virtual events, just one-off events, whether you're having a conference or team meetings, presentations, or
Mhm.
even expos. So you can have booths and have, a whole trade fair going on. So yeah, those are kind of our
Wow.
core service offerings there within the platform that we've built out.
That's amazing. In fact, just as a little bit of a side story, that's kind of like how you and I actually met, if you remember, right?
Yep.
I got this link, this random email that came into my inbox saying, "Hey, access to the free metaverse," kind of thing. So it's like, let me just click on it. I landed inside this hallway, right? I'm not even in the right avatar because I didn't even know I could customize my avatars. I'm walking around, and I see you, right? And so we started talking, right? Do
Yep.
you remember that incident?
I do. Yeah. Were you a female in
I
that
was
moment? Yep.
exactly right, and I was feeling like so embarrassed. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I was actually apologizing profusely,
It
but
happens a lot, actually, especially people when they're coming in the first time. They just get a random avatar and they're like, "Yeah, I'm just going to check this out." And then some people don't put their names either, and I'm like, "I don't know if I'm talking to a male or a female." It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the metaverse.
That's true, right? And quite frankly, like I wasn't expecting to see another person in there, to be honest with you. So when I saw you and we started talking, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is an amazing experience." The perception I had of this being a very clunky piece of work, of technology, whatever, it wasn't like that at all. It was very easy to navigate and use, and I completely got bought into it within the first minute or two. But quite frankly speaking, and then I saw you and we started talking, basically, so. Talk. You gave a big range of things that you can do. So let's take a couple of them, one by one, and just like do a bit of a deep dive a bit. So, on the marketing and sales side, you started off by talking about that, right?
Mhm.
And in a way, I kind of like felt you were talking about creating a new marketing touch point in a way, right? So for companies that are doing demand generation work, and they're trying to bring people down their funnel, I see like your capability and your technology being a great enabler in driving people down the funnel and driving conversion to purchase in a way. Have you had examples like that with your clients yet, or am I kind of like pontificating here a little bit?
No, 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 we have. So, I mean, to start, we do have two different, just to clarify, we two different platforms. One is a native app. That's the one that we built out.
Hmm.
And then we also have the web-based platform. The web-based platform's been around for about a little over a year now. But for the native app, to just give an example, we have, there's a company called Foot District. They have sports clothes and accessory. They did white label of our native app technology and created their own app for their community. And so they kind of built out, so they have the models of the clothes that they have in their store, right?
Hmm.
They have the digital twin of their store with 3D models of different shoes and clothing, so users can actually go in there and purchase directly from that. But
Wow.
beyond that, they've created a community experience. So they have meet and greets. They have different types of museums. They have a Michael Jordan museum. So
Wow.
just a space that's totally dedicated to his achievements and what he's done throughout his career. They were launching a new line, and with the launch, they were giving away a signed basketball. I can't remember who it was. So with our technology, they created a basketball game. So users came in and they had 2 minutes, I think, to shoot, and it moved their avatar around to different spots. You had three
Oh, wow.
points, so whoever got the most points, and they had this continuous leadership board. So they were driving users into the platform where they could buy, but also games. They have access to discount codes within the platform as well. So they're
Hmm.
bringing users in. They're coming in to get a discount or to do a VIP meet and greet.
Hmm.
And then at the same time, that's where their products are. So they are selling their products within the metaverse as well.
Are they finding, or like across your clients, are you finding people coming in because they're just curious, or is this becoming like a really big channel for them? Because I talked about touch point, but now you're talking about it as a channel, actually, right? So
Yeah.
is that how you're envisioning how Virtue's capabilities will lead to being a new channel for companies?
I think it's definitely going that way. Right now, I think
Mhm.
it's an extension of what traditional digital marketing is right now.
Mhm.
Um, but the way to captivate, and people want something new. They want to see something different. And I do
Yeah.
think at the same time, what you said at the beginning, there are people that are like, hey, I want to see this.
Yeah.
But once they're in, like you said, it's so easy.
Mhm.
And there's so much to take in, and then you're exploring within it. You're going from a scroller to an explorer. And so it makes sense for it not just to be a touch point, but an entire journey to enhance the customer journey, right? Captivate, get the engagement, brand affinity,
Yeah.
and then convert that person, whether
Mhm.
you're selling a service or products.
I think that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I was just thinking about as you were talking right now about one of my prior corporate experiences where I worked in the hearing aids industry, for example, where a lot of consumers are not wanting to buy hearing aids because of all the stigma that's associated with wearing a hearing aid. But I could see them, for example, coming into a metaverse environment and exploring, like you said, scrolling to exploring, and having that immersive experience where they could find out stuff without feeling or giving away that they are the ones who are actually having a hearing loss problem.
Yep.
And maybe that's a way to destigmatize. I think that would be a very interesting or fascinating way to open up, like quote unquote stigmatized industries and help
We
destigmatize.
we have a client, I can't say names or go into many details. They're
Yeah.
in the research phase, but it is a group of people that are quite stigmatized if they're seen going into the doctor asking for, any sort of, I don't I don't know how to say this without going into many details, but
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they want to create is a safe place that these
Hmm.
people can still see doctors, but they don't physically have to go there, or they can still ask questions or get access to certain programs without having to physically go to the doctor's office. So, and at the same time, that could form some sort of community as well. So you had that
Hmm.
community, like that you form something that you don't feel safe talking about with your family or your friends, and you have that safe place that you can go to, and you have your resources, you have live help, you have people that are in a similar situation as you. So there's so much more to it than
Yeah.
just selling your products or services, like the and I'll probably say this word a couple times throughout the call, but that community
Yeah.
is something that I think uh, is 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 overlooked a little bit, I think, coming into these platforms.
Well, I think to your point, yeah, I don't think people necessarily connected that there could be a community around, a metaverse solution, let's say, right? So at least for me, it's a new concept, So I'm curious to see, because there are a couple of things. One is to attract people into the community. Second is to keep them engaged within the community over a period of time. So you have to have enough things going uh, on an ongoing basis to do that. I see this, for example, in the market research world, where there are companies that offer community panels where a client company may have a panel of, say, I don't know, 1,000 consumers that are dedicated to that particular company's questions, but then the company has to constantly be asking questions every week to keep them engaged. So I'm just wondering if that's an issue that you also have to contend with if you're trying to create the community.
Um, I mean, I think there's something there that is like keeping things fresh, right?
Yeah.
So having different types of experiences when they're coming back in. So maybe you're having a promotional deal, but we also encourage maybe having, like you said, you have the networking place, but maybe different talking points within a networking
Right.
plaza.
Yeah.
So they have a spot. They don't just sit down and say, "Hey, what do we talk about?" No, you've got a board there, and let's say the topic is Web3 or spatial computing or
Hmm.
metaverse and education.
Hmm.
But they have, talking points, maybe some ideas, and maybe a digital whiteboard that they can
Yeah.
collaborate on, or post-its that they can post in there with, what they talked about. So I think it's more, yeah, you do have to encourage it. It's not just create your metaverse platform and let people go through it. I think that is an important factor of
Yeah.
studying your data and analytics. How long did people stay in there? Where did they go?
Hmm.
Did they miss out on the most important room? So then you make adjustments on, what you're doing in there. But yeah, you have to even you have to work at it, and you have to have something new if you want them to come back in. They don't want to come back in and see the same thing as they did before. So
Of course.
having certain, maybe saving some experiences for
Yeah.
later down the road.
We already have a question. I'm going to pop the question on so you can see it. So Adrian's asking, some products are best viewed in situation, and consumers know this. Like, think about household appliances, for example, right? Where online shopping is catching on, but people need to see it in the context of their home, or they need to have a sense of you know, the spatial environment around which the appliance would be, I would imagine, right? So how would that work in for, like, say, home good appliances, like washers and dryers and things like that, for example?
I think that augmented reality is definitely going to come into that later as well. I think there's been a
Yeah.
lot of developments in augmented and l- at this point, I feel like virtual and augmented mixed reality is just starting to overlap, and eventually that is definitely going to just mesh together.
Okay.
Like, but I actually just got off a call like 2 hours ago from she's an interior designer, and they're looking at exactly something like this, and they do interior designing for just common households, and we were talking about how can we have the shape of their room, which is quite easy, and then
Hmm.
getting 3D models in. So having that 3D model asset that you can upload, and the interior designers can actually make their prototype
Hmm.
in the metaverse first, and the client
Hmm.
can walk through that and give their feedback, like, hey, I don't like this, or maybe a different color, a different rug.
Hmm.
So this is the thing that when people say this kind of stuff, the it's the imagination is your limit, and I say that for Vertway as well, because it is our own technology. So when someone comes to us with a use case that we've never thought of, that's
Hmm.
when we get our engineers and our design team in, like, hey, how can we make this happen?
Right.
So yeah, I see it, and I've seen some augmented reality companies that are doing stuff like that, where you can use your phone and kind of have your actual room
Yeah.
in the background, and then you can put that in there. I think the
Right.
metaverse would be a really cool place to showcase stuff like that too.
Amazing, amazing. So you talked about augmented reality, you talked about virtual reality, you talked about immersive experiences. But before we both came onto this onto the podcast, you also mentioned me like AI and how AI factors into this as well. So could you just talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. Um, so as far as our company, for the last year or so, we've been working with AI, and we have integrated two different kind of AI bots within there. So we have a text
Mm.
AI and a conversational AI that you can just speak to like a regular person. So I think these play a huge role in what you're doing in the metaverse. They can be completely trained. They can know your company and your brand back to front. They can know everything about all of your products, details, the price. We've built out a store for a Swedish company called AOCMS,
Hmm.
and they don't have a physical store. They're pure e-commerce, and
Hmm.
they wanted something a little bit more
Hmm.
tangible, I guess, and immersive. So we built out their store. You've got men's section to the right, women's to the left, undergarments in the backside, and the AI bot in the front. The AI
Hmm.
bot knows everything about this company, knows where every single piece of product is, and so
Hmm.
I can go in and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a comfortable dress." She's like, "Oh yeah, we've got a few couple dresses that might interest you." She can talk me through the materials, what they're made of, and then pricing, whatnot. And I'm like, "Can I see them?" She's like, "Yeah, just follow around to the right side. They're in the right back corner." So she has all of that information. So you don't
Wow.
even need a live rep always in there. You've got the AI bot that you can train with all of this information. And I was actually just watching a video this morning on narrative storytelling that we're going to be also integrating into the AI bot. So you have that kind of user experience storytelling option with the bots as well.
Oh my God. Talk about that emotional connection you can create as a consequence of that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. And I mean, global access
Mhm.
24/7, you can't always have a live sales rep going in there and greeting the users, as they're coming in, but your AI can do that for you. And then I've talked about data analytics before. You also can get data analytics from those AI bots, those conversations. You can go back and review, what did this user, what was their conversation like? Did they answer? You can see the conversation that they had. So there's a lot to take away from the AI. And I think, honestly, it's just getting better and better every week. There's all sorts of new functionalities, and then once you bring in generative AI as well, once we can get that optimized into and actually create like I forgot her name, the one that asked the question earlier,
Adrian, yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
is have generative AI maybe create something like this. Like, you say which
Yeah.
appliance that you want, and they create a 3D model of it, and then you can move it and put it
Ooh.
into the space. So I think AI is going to play a huge role as we continue developing all of this technology.
My gosh, you've actually kind of like blown my mind right now because because as it is, getting into an immersive experience and playing around with that is already like mind blowing for many people, right? You talked about how AI is now starting to actually do things that you couldn't do before, and then you took it even one step further where you're saying, hey, it can actually help design and create for you also, right? And it feels like to me like it's not as if this is like something that's out there in the future. You're saying that the technology is already available today, It's just
Oh yeah,
not yet distributed everywhere just yet, it seems like. Am I
definitely.
correct on that?
For sure. Yeah, no, there's all sorts of AI tools out there right now that are and what I said about like Gen AI in our case, we have a huge focus on user experience and not overloading that scene, like
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons that we haven't quite yet got Gen AI into our scenes because someone could come in and tell Gen AI to create,
Yeah.
I don't know, create the entire city of France or entire city of Paris, and then
Yeah.
boom,
Yep.
everything explodes. So
Right. Right.
there's but this stuff exists already. There are companies that are creating AI generated cities and AI generated buildings. In
Yeah.
our case, it's about figuring out that optimization to bring it in and still provide that smooth user experience.
Right. So, a couple of things I wanted to ask you. Now, let me ask both the questions, and you can decide which way you want to go. One question is, for small and medium-sized companies, when you're in this conversation, they're saying they might be thinking like, "Oh my gosh, this is so expensive. It must be costing millions of dollars to go create this." So that's one train of thought I want you to answer. And second is, you talked about, websites going from 2D to 3D, which is going to be the case for most small and medium-sized businesses in terms of their storefront, if you want to call it that, right?
Mhm.
Could you help us understand, are we talking about huge investments here that only the Coca-Colas of the world can afford, or is this something that anybody can do today? I'm just curious.
Yep. No, absolutely not. It's that's another thing at Vertway. Like, we find our platform to be really affordable, and that opens up the opportunities. This isn't. I mean, we've got a lot of big players that we've worked with as well,
Hmm.
but we also have small mom and pop shops and small companies, medium-sized companies
Hmm.
that are coming in and using this. It totally depends on what you need, the price, customization. Do you need digital twins?
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of private pricing lines,
Hmm.
but something that we also provide are already built templates and
Wow.
that you can customize on top of. So this is where a lot of the people that have lower budgets, they're like, perfect. I'll just use the already built template and put my logos, my branding, videos, and they can
Hmm.
add in their content and
Hmm.
make it look like it's theirs.
Wow.
So it's quite easy, honestly, like and not expensive at all. And the second part of your question
The second
was,
question, for small and medium-sized companies that
yes,
have a 2D website, and you talked about 3D,
yeah,
going 3D. So give us a couple of examples on that front. I'm just curious to hear what you've seen so far, with your clients.
yeah. So this is a newer service that we recently started offering, and we actually have it for free right now. So if
Oh.
you guys go to vertway.com, we're offering a free 3D showroom for small, medium enterprises. And kind of one of the purposes of this is so many people say, hey, yeah, I want to do it, and they just never get around to doing it. So we kind of want to help kickstart this. Like,
Hmm.
you can do it. We're going to give it to you for free. We're going to decorate it for you, and you
Hmm.
just have to embed it on your website. So what companies are doing, the ones that we've worked with in the last couple weeks, we get in touch with them. They're building this out, so they send us like their objectives, their audience. We get to know them a little bit and have that conversation to kind of understand what they need from us. They
Hmm.
send us videos, logos, ideas, and then our product manager goes in and they choose the showroom that they want and then kind of create it out for them, and then they can add anything on top of it or change it. So we're really trying to open up this space for people to give it a try. And right now, the results have been really good. People that
Hmm.
have put them on their website, so they've got it on their website. So their website traffic isn't affected at all. They can
Hmm.
still choose to scroll. They can chill. They can still. Everything's still there. It doesn't affect anything from what their website already has, or their keywords or SEO.
Yeah.
That's all still on their website, but they come to a window where they just have to click to enter if they choose to actually come in and explore differently.
Amazing, amazing. I know a couple of companies that might be very interested in this, because they have products that, you have to see it and like touch it, feel it in a way, but you could still do that in the context of this platform basically as well. So
Yeah.
we may have to talk about that separately as well. So, you
Sounds
know,
good.
but so with all of this stuff that's going on, right? We talked about the marketing, you talked about the retail experience and the immersion that you can get from that. You also talked earlier about other use cases, right, around training and education. Um, what kind of use cases have you seen specifically around training and education? I'm just curious, like, how many people could be involved in one event? What's the degree of sophistication in terms of what's being shown, etc. Just if you could speak to that as well.
Yeah. So training and education are huge use cases right now. And I guess I'll start from what that you said at the ending. So in the native app, we can have up to 1,000 people in the same scene.
Oh wow.
So when you're talking massive expos or, huge conferences, like
Yeah.
you can still have that feeling of like power with tons of people around you.
Hmm.
Um, and with the web version, for example, I think we're at about 200 max.
Okay.
But there's the cloning tools, so that's 200
Hmm.
per room, or that's 1,000 per room. Then you
Okay.
can make a clone of that room, so your speakers and your screens are all getting passed into the room, and you just have another group of avatars or another group of attendees that are coming in, so they still see and hear the presentation. They're just with a different group in a different room.
Amazing.
So numbers are kind of limitless. As far as education and use cases, we have quite a few universities. So we've got a couple universities that in Spain they've been using this. The one use case for one of the universities I love. They use this for gosh, I can't think of the word for their law
Okay.
undergrads,
Right.
and
Wow.
they kind
Mhm.
of go into like a courtroom and they do
Mhm.
actual like simulations. So the teacher is the judge, and maybe they have the two students and they have to present a case and argue it. So I've seen
Wow.
some really cool stuff with that. University of Georgia is using it right now for immersive classes, and they're doing group presentations. Their idea was, this evolution of getting off of virtual or video conferencing and bringing them in. So, especially with the Vertway metaverse, we're not yet doing the whole focus on the VR headset. It's
Yeah.
avatars in a 3D environment, and I think a lot of people are seeing it as that. It is that evolution to
Hmm.
what will be eventually when I believe VR headsets are a little bit more optimized, a little and a common household device.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hmm.
UGA, they're doing networking and they're having all sorts of immersive classes. And then as far as training, uh, it's honestly, it's the feedback is so good. Maybe should I talk about an example of maybe
Yeah.
a company that's done
Yeah.
some training?
Please.
Um, so we've done training with quite a few companies, Microsoft and McDonald's. So McDonald's wanted to do training for their restaurant directors,
Oh,
managers. So we built out a digital twin of
wow.
of their restaurant, inside, outside, drive through, back of the kitchen. It's all there, and they all kind of look the same. So they just needed one.
Yeah.
And then as you come in, you've got the AI that greets you and kind of says, "Hey, this is where you are. This is what you're going to do." And then it's a training simulation. So as they go through, they get a video maybe that pops up or information, and then they start the actual training bit. So maybe hot oil spills back in the kitchen.
Hmm.
You as the manager, what do you need to do? Who do you need to call? Maybe there's an accident in the drive-through, or there's trash on the ground. Any
Hmm.
sort of situation. So
Yeah.
they go through, and these are actual. They're actually seeing this. It's happening as they're going through the course, and they have a series of questions
Hmm.
that they have to answer, and we set it up so that the questions never are in the same order. So person A
Hmm.
can't tell person B the answer. They actually all have to go through and do it. And this one created a massive FOMO effect internally for them because they have their
Hey.
internal social media, and
Yeah.
people were like, "Oh, I got my certificate! Can't wait till the next one." And then everyone, "When's it my turn?" Because they did it in groups, and they're like, "I can't wait till it's my turn." And they sent us all these screenshots of it, so it just shows, and it wasn't just fun, but they said like, I feel like I actually learned a lot. Like it was fun, it was productive.
Hmm.
My time was well spent in there. So the training inside of the metaverse, I think, has huge potential because you're not just clicking through a web page or listening to videos in the background while you're you're doing something else.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
actually brought into it. You have to do it. You have to participate in it.
Well, look, I teach at the University of South Carolina, and I actually had two or three of my classes, experienced, your platform, and I let them loose for like the first 15, 20 minutes just so they could go explore. And everyone's like, they're doing the dances initially, and then they're walking around exploring. But ultimately we kind of like went back to our project work that we had to do, and the teams went into the different rooms so they could do their own work. And me as the instructor, I'm going back and forth between the rooms just to make sure everyone's, if they have questions for me, they can ask me questions, etc. And given the fact that I'm teaching online right now, for me, this was a massive like step forward where I felt like I was with them, even though I was not with them physically. It just brought that kind of engagement that I couldn't have had otherwise, right? Now, granted, I did this on the last day of class, right? But you've got me thinking now about not just creating an immersive experience and teaching students, but I'm even thinking about like networking events, for example. Like students are craving to meet, professionals in industry. This could be a great way to bring them together without having anybody having to travel, for
Yep.
example.
Yep.
You know?
And we've done job fairs as well,
Oh, you have?
yeah. So there's a bunch of job fairs that we've done, or just meet and greet. So,
Yeah.
like you're saying, they're talking to someone that they admire, and they're not just like watching them without that personal interaction. It does feel a little bit closer. It does feel you're in the same room as someone that is maybe your hero, or
Yeah.
whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
um, so it does, yeah. I think the networking, and that goes back to what I said earlier about the community too. Like
Hmm.
there's so much more opportunity to bring people together,
Yeah.
in there, and people and then they find themselves with common interests. And there's another thing, just to add to that we've gotten a lot of feedback on, is sometimes at these networking events or job fairs or any sort of conferences, there's always the introverts.
Hmm.
When they're in person, they tend to be the ones that just kind of stay off in the back and just observe, right?
Yeah.
And multiple of them have said, I actually like felt empowered and
Huh.
spoke and asked questions that never in my life dreamed of asking, but I felt in the metaverse more equal to. I didn't feel like I was the introvert that needed to like just kind of observe. And so I think that
Amazing.
also brings power to it. You have more people that maybe are more willing to engage and participate and ask questions and talk about things that maybe in real life they wouldn't feel comfortable doing.
That is an amazing insight, because it's so empowering, actually, right? So I can just see, I literally I'm feeling like the hairs on my arms right now because I deal with this in my classes all the time where they're the introverts, and I try my best to have them speak in class, but I have to acknowledge that okay, they're introverted. But one thing I've learned through my corporate experience, there some of them are usually the ones who have the most insightful thoughts because they think things through before they actually speak, right?
Yep.
So if this is a way to help them, you know get that gives them the confidence to speak up, that's an amazing situation right there. I love that. I absolutely love that. So,
Yeah. It,
you know,
it surprised me at the beginning, honestly, but now we've gotten
yeah,
it the feedback so many different times. I'm like,
yeah,
and I've read articles about it as well. Like there is something more empowering about that, and I think it's
uh,
amazing to give them a voice where they
of
feel
course.
comfortable to speak. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that actually leads me to another question. And have you had any companies or clients that have done, let's say, like market research, like focus groups or even like survey kind of thing in the metaverse? I'm curious to hear if you've had any of those kinds of experiences.
We have.
You have, okay.
There was a company last year, I think it was.
Hmm.
Um, Gosh, I can't remember their name right now. Um, they're a part of MMR.
Okay.
Um, I'll see if it comes to me as I'm talking.
Yeah, no
Um,
worries.
but they did a research group. They did two different sessions, I believe, but one of them was on endometriosis and PCOS. So they had research. They had a group of doctors, a group of patients, and then they had a group with the doctors and the patients. And so there was a whole process that they went through, and they did this trial event to get the feedback. How
Hmm.
did it go?
Hmm.
And then we've also worked with the main organization, MMR, and they've done more presentational virtual conferences to
Okay.
to talk about the results of some of their research. I think the last one they did was about meat. Uh,
Hmm.
they did a whole study on meat and the meat
Really?
industry. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that would be of interest to some people that I know right now, actually. So we may have to talk about that offline again.
Have to write all this down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we got it recorded, so we can always go back and look at the recording, right?
Perfect.
Um,
And use
fantastic. So
AI. Use
yeah,
AI to take notes.
exactly, exactly. But these are amazing use cases, and the fact that it's the technology's advanced so far now, and you have these companies, small, medium, large companies, all coming in, and playing and experimenting. Not only creating touch points, they're creating new channels for themselves, high degrees of engagement. Creating a community, ability to train and educate their staff. This is phenomenal stuff that I'm hearing here. So, what's the next? The next step now. In fact, I got a question coming in right now from Chris. Let me just put it on there. you know w- is blockchain the next thing that you guys are going to integrate? Where's all this headed now? So
It is on the roadmap. I won't say it's on the roadmap for this year, but it
yeah.
is something that, yes, we are looking into and considering, but the best way to do that moving forward.
Amazing. So so blockchain is one, but what is there anything else that you have that you can share today, or you think if you even want to not talk about your company, but just based on what you're seeing in this space, where do you think the world is headed in that sense?
Gosh, I mean, I really think there's a lot of things that are going to happen. The technological advancements that are going on are just above and beyond.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, well, I think accessibility is something that's opening up as well, and people are realizing, and I think you said something like this maybe at the very beginning or in one of our other conversations, like thinking that it was more futuristic,
Hmm.
or something that's not accessible yet, and
Yeah.
I think that coming to terms of saying like, okay, no, it is here, and creating that. So first, that mentality shift, I think, and then the shift from static to interactive is
Hmm.
going to happen. So and then you're going to have a rise of a different type of experiential marketing,
Hmm.
and bringing in those emotional connections within the environment. And I think as VR, so our platform right now, we have done VR for specific clients, but
Hmm.
I mentioned this earlier, and we were kind of waiting for the Apple Vision Pro. Now that's here and it's amazing. We want to see, how are we going to integrate VR into the platforms as well? And I think that's just going to be something that comes with market demand.
Hmm.
Um, so that I'm really excited about that, obviously. And yeah, I mentioned it earlier. AI is going to play a really big part
Yeah.
in how different metaverse experiences are going to be totally enhanced.
Hmm.
And I think, and beyond the experience,
Hmm.
like bringing marketing into it, the data and analytics that AI eventually, I think, is going to be. You're going to be able to take out, and for right now, and the stage that we're in,
Hmm.
finding that way to merge
Hmm.
your data and analytics from an immersive platform with your data and analytics from your traditional 2D website or whatever it is that you're measuring.
Yeah.
um, so finding that integration of AI and data analytics, I think, is going to be something that's coming, or maybe integrating with a CRM, or
Hmm.
I think this is all coming, we're coming down into the data's there on both sides right now. How do we pull it together and measure
Hmm.
results? That's a little bit more manual right now, so bringing that in.
So
um,
do you actually have common metrics from your end that you're measuring already from these immersive experiences, or
we do.
you do? So because I'm just wondering whether this requires a new set of analytical capabilities that have to be taught to people, or are they things that people can easily grasp because it's already available? It's just a new data set. I'm not sure which way it goes.
Yeah, it's just more like a new data set. So, and
Okay.
it's nothing complex. So basically, especially the native app, we have it a little bit more developed right now than we do in the web. But
Mhm.
so I'll talk about the native app, because all of that from
Yeah.
the native app eventually is going to be in the web. So we can know where. what users came in, obviously, how long they spent there, what scenes they visited, how long they spent in the scenes, content that was interacted with,
Right.
whether they used their microphone, so that were they actually having conversations. If it was a networking event and only 10% of the people turned on their microphone,
Yeah.
maybe there was a problem.
Yes,
uh,
exactly. Yeah.
so we have all of this analytics that you can really choose, and the if you're having a job fair, for example, all of our booths have their own set of analytics. So booth owners can know who crossed in to their booth, what content they interacted with, how long they spent there, so they get all of that data there as well. So as a maybe a sponsor of an event, you have that list to follow up as well with those users. You can nurture maybe some leads,
Hmm.
or so that the data's there. Maybe it's not as crystal clear when you're taking it from different platforms or your CRM that you're used to,
Yeah.
but it's quite easy to read, and with AI you can just chug it chug chug and plug and ask for ask for the numbers.
Absolutely. No, but you've kind of like, opened my eyes to another thing here, which is that, as people are, starting to experiment and they're starting to create these kinds of solutions, the data and analytics is there. You're actually able to capture a lot of behavioral metrics by the sounds of it. Like the
Mhm.
ones you were describing, they sound very behavioral based,
Yep.
which, gives you a lot more insight at the end of the day on what kind of things you need to be doing to communicate as well, to improve the quality of the experience, the engagement, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So, I think that this opens up a lot more opportunities for brands in ways that they may have not thought about previously. And quite frankly, if I just take one step back even further, you mentioned the concept of digital twins. That's existed in the supply chain world for God knows how long, but that's new to the marketing world, right?
Yep.
And here you are talking about that. So and all the metrics that come with that, and the diagnostics and analytics that come along with that, right? So I think this is a new frontier that we have to wrap our heads around as marketeers, and what does that actually mean. So you're literally on the forefront of all this, so this is amazing. So
It's exciting.
it is very exciting. It's very exciting. So tell me, if somebody who's listening on this live, or subsequently, if they wanted to start with you or with your organization, what would be those first 4 or 5 steps that you would recommend people do in preparation for a call with your organization?
Yeah, I mean, first I think it's define your objectives, and those might change later down the road, but go ahead and have a set of goals or KPIs that you want to reach.
Hmm.
I think that's big first,
Hmm.
and design that based on who your audience is. You
Hmm.
know, have that persona in mind, and it's not for you, it's for them. So keeping your audience is the hero and you're their guide. So how are you going to take them on that user journey to get to your goal?
Hmm.
um, and then I think another thing is design for immersion. So there's a different it's not about copying and pasting your 2D website into a 3D, or
Hmm.
your physical event into a virtual event. There
Hmm.
has to be a mindset shift, and and that's part of the consultation that we offer at Vertway. So first, if you can tell us what your goals are, that's where we can come in and help you
Hmm.
with creating the design for immersion. Um, and personalizing the experience, right? So I think those are key right there. Like if you understand your audience, and then maybe start small. Like you don't have to go all in on this, or you don't have to
Yeah.
put your full product catalog in the metaverse. Maybe just
Hmm.
have your sale products, or maybe you're promoting a certain line. Like
Hmm.
you can start small and eventually grow that. So I think just having that focus on engagement and testing the waters there, and measuring your feedback, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Not
Yep.
just the data that you can get from it, but see if you can send out that survey or have it actually linked in the metaverse and have see people like, hey, what'd you think? Get that
Yeah.
feedback. So when you're starting small, that's giving you a lot of opportunities to adjust and grow,
Hmm.
but grow in a positive manner that the rest of the people that are going to come in are going to love it too.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, I am guessing that you have ways to get people started with you. Let me. I'm opening up the door for you to to share if you have anything.
Yes. So I did mention that we have a special promotion going on right now.
Hmm.
Let me drop a link in the LinkedIn. So we are offering a free 3D showroom to people right now. It's a limited time offer, but it will be forever free if you sign up now. So, like I mentioned before, it's to help kickstart that, right?
Hmm.
And we want to help you do it. The only thing that we ask in return is that you do embed it into your existing website, and then so it's a win-win, right? We're getting and you said this before. There's a lot of products that you need to actually see and feel before you
Hmm.
make that decision. And I think metaverse experiences are exactly that as well. So we want people to try this out. We want people to see what the Vertway platform is like,
Hmm.
and then in exchange, obviously, we want companies also to give this experience to their users and have that experience to share with them. Um, I will drop another, well, I'll just do the homepage, drop Vertway homepage in there. You can get more information about the offer from the homepage too. Uh,
Fantastic.
yeah,
Fantastic. Well, Danielle, this has been an amazing conversation. I felt I learned so much from you in the last 45 minutes. Believe it or not, it's been 45 minutes.
it's flown by.
That's not by exactly right. Um, so thank you so much for doing this with me. I truly appreciate it, and thank you again for allowing me and my classes to participate in this as well. I'm now thinking about future opportunities as well, so we can definitely talk about that online too, or
Yeah,
offline rather, on that too. But just to recap, Danielle McConnell, global head of marketing at Vertway. She's been talking about the metaverse. If you haven't followed through the entire thing and you just joined a bit later, do listen to the entire podcast. It's an amazing conversation. She's dropped a couple of links in the comments, so feel free to go and play with that. I think you'll be surprised as I was and impressed just as I was, with what you will see. So please, follow her, connect with her, follow me as well, connect with me too. So just to end the show, the next session is going to be on May 23rd at 11 a.m. Central Time. My guest is going to be Thor Olof Philogen, who's the CEO of Stravito. It's a market research company where Thor and I will be talking about AI and marketing. He's also, by the way, he has his own podcast that he does called the Consumer Insights Podcast. I was a guest on his show a couple of years ago. We're now going to reverse the tables, and I'm going to interview him instead now. So it'll be an interesting conversation in a couple of weeks. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and see you next time.
thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.